I burned apartment 5D, but it was too late. Identity drama mystery. Back then, the building was just a structure of fading paint and creaking bones, a relic from a better time holding together stories it was never meant to contain. Apartment 5D had always been quiet. Too quiet. Not in the peaceful, gentle kind of way, but in the ominous, waiting for something kind. Everyone who lived near it whispered about that apartment like it was hollow, like it didn't belong to the rest of the floor, like it was a missing puzzle piece that had been jammed into place and didn't quite fit. It had been vacant for over 4 years when I moved in across the hall. The landlord, a terse man with nicotine-stained fingers, didn't offer explanations and I didn't ask. Rent was cheap, the walls were thick, and the view from my window overlooked an old, ivy-choked courtyard that felt like it had secrets of its own. For the first 2 months, nothing happened. I lived my life like I always had, alone, guarded, habitual. The neighbors were courteous but distant, the elevator always arrived with a sigh, and the mail was always slightly damp, as if it traveled through something it shouldn't have. But then, one Wednesday at 3:17 a.m., the door to apartment 5D clicked open. I heard it distinctly. The bolt turned, the hinges groaned softly, and something shuffled out. I didn't move from bed at first. I told myself it must have been someone checking the unit, maybe a repairman or an inspector. But by the third night in a row, the same sound, the same time. I stopped telling myself anything at all and just listened. After that, the noises became more frequent. Thumps, scrapes, a low dragging sound like furniture being moved, though nobody ever came in or out during the day. Then there was the light, a dim yellow glow that flickered like candlelight through the frosted peephole of 5D. No one had leased the place. I checked. I even asked the landlord directly, which I hadn't done before. He looked surprised I'd brought it up, told me nobody had keys to that unit except him and the maintenance guy, and neither had been inside in months. I left that conversation more uneasy than I'd been before. Something about the way he looked at me, half concerned, half like he wanted me to stop noticing. That weekend, the scent began. A sharp, metallic smell that came and went, lingering just long enough to make you question your own senses. I bought candles, kept windows open, and still it returned, especially after 3 a.m. I started having dreams I couldn't shake. In each of them, I stood in the hallway outside my door, looking across at 5D. The door was slightly ajar, darkness inside like a mouth. I would reach for the knob, and just as I touched it, I'd wake up gasping, my fingers ice cold. The dreams became routine, as did the noises. I tried recording the hallway with my phone, left it propped up on a stack of old books while I pretended to sleep. When I watched the footage the next day, the video glitched every night at 3:17 a.m. for exactly 33 seconds. Just static. No sound, no motion, just static. I became obsessed. I barely left my apartment. I stopped answering calls. Work emails piled up. My life shrank down to the hallway between 50C and 50D, and all that lay in between. One night, I couldn't take it anymore. I walked across the hall and placed my palm flat against the door of 5D. It was cold. Not room temperature. Cold like a freezer. I knocked once. No answer. Knocked again. Silence. I pressed my ear to the door and heard something whisper, except it wasn't words. It was like the sound of nails scratching at wood, layered beneath the low hum of a woman humming a tune I couldn't quite place. I jumped back, heart pounding, and darted back into my own unit, locking the door behind me 3 times. Sleep became impossible. Shadows moved wrong. My reflection lagged. I kept losing track of time. Days blurred. I once found myself standing barefoot in the hallway at 3:19 a.m., not remembering how I got there, holding a key I didn't own. I dropped it in horror, watched it skitter across the floor and stop at the foot of 5D's door. That night I didn't sleep at all. The next morning, I took the key to the landlord. He looked at it, confused, said it didn't belong to any unit in the building. That was when I noticed his hands trembled slightly. That evening, the humming was louder, clearer. It was a lullaby. A slow, chilling rendition of "Hush, Little Baby." I sat in the dark with all the lights off, phone recording, audio app running. At exactly 3:17 a.m., the hallway camera went to static again, but this time I caught something on the audio. A voice. "Don't listen to them. They don't live here anymore." I played it back over and over, but each time the voice got fainter until the recording was just static. I knew I was slipping. I just didn't know how far. On the 12th night, I found the key again, on my kitchen counter. I didn't put it there. I hadn't left my apartment. I stared at it for a long time before picking it up. Something in me felt drawn like an invisible hand guiding mine. I crossed the hallway barefoot, key clenched tight, every step like walking deeper into someone else's memory. I inserted the key. The lock turned. The door creaked open. What I saw inside didn't make sense. It wasn't an apartment. It was a replica of mine. Furniture, decor, even the books on the shelf, but dustless, still, lifeless, like it had been abandoned mid-moment. A teacup sat on the table, still half full. My photograph, of my late mother and I, was on the wall, only we were standing in different poses. She was older. I was not smiling. I stepped inside, heart drumming. Everything was so familiar, and yet something was always off. A slight shift in color, in placement. My coat hanging by the door, but not the one I owned. The smell was stronger in here, metallic and thick. I turned toward the bedroom, the door half open. From within came the same lullaby and a faint glow. I should have turned back. Should have run. But I stepped forward. I stepped into a place that wasn't mine, in a life that almost was. And that's when I saw her, sitting on the bed, back to me, humming. She had my hair. She wore my robe. But her shoulders were wrong, too rigid. Her hands clasped something I couldn't see. I said nothing, but she turned, as if hearing my thoughts. And the face that looked at me wasn't mine. It wasn't human. It was smiling too wide, eyes too black, teeth too even. She said one thing, just one. You left the door open. Then everything went black. When I woke up, I was in my own bed. Or so I thought, but the walls were now painted in a dull blue I didn't choose. The photos on the shelves were slightly different. My phone didn't recognize my face. My fingerprints wouldn't unlock the door. And when I looked out the peaceful apartment 5D was gone. In its place, just a blank wall of brick. The hallway now stretched shorter, like the building had forgotten there was ever a 5D. But I remember every second. And some nights, when everything is quiet, I hear her humming from inside my mirror. I didn't leave the apartment for 3 days. Not out of fear, though fear had rooted itself into every crevice of my mind, but because I couldn't. The door wouldn't open. The locks turned, the handle twisted, but the door remained as firm and unmoving as a concrete wall. I banged on it, screamed through it, but not a single soul in the hallway seemed to hear me. No footsteps, no voices, only silence. The kind that presses against your eardrums like water. Even my windows were sealed shut, nailed from the outside, though I had never noticed any nails before. The sky beyond the glass was gray and static, unmoving clouds that looked painted on, unreal in their stillness. When I tried calling for help, the phone showed full bars but wouldn't connect. Every number I dialed, emergency, friends, even the landlord, just rang once, then cut to silence. Not even a voicemail. I messaged everyone I could think of. Blue ticks never arrived. Eventually, even the internet stopped working. I was no longer in the world I knew. I was somewhere else. Somewhere built to look like my life, but carefully stripped of its tether to the outside. I began to suspect that the moment I stepped into apartment 5D, something had changed. Not in the building, but in me. Or maybe, just maybe, I never left 5D at all. Maybe I was still in there, trapped in that perfect copy of my own life, stitched together by something that mimicked reality just enough to fool the eye. On the 4th night, the humming returned, this time from every corner of the apartment. Not just from the mirror, but through the walls, through the floorboards, even in the hum of the refrigerator. Hush, little baby. The voice crooned, soft and wet, like it was speaking through blood. I smashed the mirror in the bathroom, then the one in the hallway, then the one on my closet door. But the song didn't stop. In fact, it only got louder. And the broken glass shimmered with something I couldn't understand. Reflections of things that weren't there. Movements that didn't match mine. A version of myself looking back with a sick grin. I covered the shards, threw them away, stuffed towels under the doors and over the vents. But I could still hear it. It had made a home inside me now. That's when the photos began to change, not all at once. Subtly, the picture of me and my mother shifted. Her eyes now slightly closed, her smile crooked and wrong, as if she had been interrupted mid-laugh. Then, my face in the photo slowly grew pale. A shadow crept behind us in the frame, a black and unformed, like smoke taking shape. The books on my shelf now had blank pages, every single one, even the ones I had highlighted, underlined, written in, gone. My handwriting replaced with a looping script I couldn't read, one that seemed to move slightly if I stared too long. I opened a drawer to find dozens of keys, all identical to the one I used to open 5D. They hadn't been there before. They were cold and smelled like rusted iron. And the worst part, I had the urge to try each of them. Not out of curiosity, but necessity, like one of them could unlock something I had forgotten or lost or buried. On the 5th night, I saw her again. Not in the mirror this time. In my bed, she was lying beneath the covers, facing away from me, breathing softly. I stood frozen, unable to blink. I hadn't slept in days, hadn't even sat on the bed since that night. But there she was. The shape of her back under the sheet was unmistakable. I took one step forward, and the breathing stopped. I took another, and her head turned slightly. Just enough for me to see the glint of black eyes. I ran. Locked myself in the bathroom. No mirrors, no lights. Just me, the darkness, and the pounding of my heart. I stayed there for hours, knees pressed to my chest, rocking slowly, until I heard the bedroom door creak open and her footsteps move away. Only then did I emerge. The bed was empty, but the pillow on the left side was indented, as if someone had just been lying there. I stopped keeping track of time after that. Days and nights bled into each other. The clocks no longer moved. The sun never shifted in the sky. My apartment, if it was even that, was a cage without time, a loop of dread. I ate what I could, rationed out the food, though I had no idea how long it had been. Every time I checked the fridge, there was slightly more or less food than I remembered. Sometimes things I had never bought appeared on the shelves. Jars with no labels, meat wrapped in paper that smelled sweet and wrong. Once I opened a container to find it empty except for a single tooth. Not mine. Not human. I stopped opening things after that. My dreams, when I could sleep, became more vivid. I wasn't just watching the woman in 5D anymore. I was becoming her. I wore her face. I looked through her eyes. I stood behind my own reflection and watched myself crumble. She whispered to me, told me truths I didn't want to hear, told me I had already been replaced, that I was the echo now, a memory of someone who used to exist. That's why no one was answering, because I had already been erased, that I was screaming into a world that had moved on without me. I tried to prove her wrong. I tried to find proof of my existence. I tore apart drawers, checked old notebooks, searched every inch of the apartment for something, anything, that proved I had once lived. But all I found were empty records, erased files, photos with my face blurred out, a calendar with every date scratched over. I wasn't even a ghost. I was a rumor. The final push came on a night that didn't exist. I had stopped checking the calendar, but I could feel it. Something was shifting again. The air was heavier. The apartment smelled like wet ash. The humming was gone, but in its place, the sound of breathing, mine and not mine, filling the silence. I walked to the window and saw nothing. Not the street, not the courtyard, just black. A void that swallowed all light. Then the knock came. 3 soft raps on the front door. I didn't move. Again, 3 knocks, and then a voice. "It's you again." Not a question, a statement, like it had been expecting me. I stood by the door, heart thudding, hand trembling above the handle, and then I asked a question I shouldn't have. "Who are you?" The voice replied instantly. "The one who remembers. The one who waits for the door to open." I backed away, but the handle turned on its own, slowly, deliberately. I ran. I didn't even look back. I just ran into the bedroom, slammed the door, shoved the dresser in front of it. But as I did, I caught my reflection in the black window, and I wasn't alone. Behind me in the reflection stood the woman. Eyes black, smile wide, and this time, she didn't vanish. She waved, not at me, at someone else. And that's when it hit me. I was no longer the observer. I was being observed. My life had become her memory, her loop, her stage. And somewhere in the real world, someone else, some version of me, had stepped out of 5D and never looked back. That's when I found the note, folded neatly under my pillow. Just 3 words. "You're almost ready. I haven't left the bedroom since. I don't trust the walls. I don't trust the sounds. But I'm beginning to understand. This isn't about escape. It's about replacement. Repetition. There's always someone to take your place. Someone to wear your skin, mimic your smile, learn your life. And when they do, you become the echo, the whisper, the forgotten. Apartment 5D isn't cursed. It's a doorway. And I walked through. Or maybe I always was the one waiting on the other side. I began marking the walls. 1 tally for every day I thought had passed. 1 scratch for every dream that felt more like a memory than fantasy. Soon the walls were filled with jagged rows, all uneven, all unsure, none of them real. There was no sun to count by, no night to measure sleep. The light in the apartment never changed. It was a dull amber, like candlelight trapped in fog, the kind of glow that makes everything feel like a memory of warmth rather than warmth itself. I told myself I'd keep track until something changed, but things already had. Every night, or what I guessed was night, the sound of shuffling grew louder. Not just in the hallway, but above me, below me, inside the vents. Like something was pacing, mapping the borders of my world. It made no attempts to enter. Not yet, but I could feel it learning, waiting. One day I found my reflection in the toaster. I wasn't near it, hadn't touched it, but there I was. Only slightly wrong. My eyes blinked out of sync. My lips moved though I hadn't spoken, and in the corner of its chrome curve, a second figure stood behind me, grinning. When I turned around, there was nothing. I stopped looking in any reflective surface after that. No glass, no water, no screens. I spoke out loud just to remind myself I had a voice. But even that began to betray me. My own words sounded muffled, delayed, like someone else was repeating them a fraction of a second too late. I'd speak, then hear the echo, twisted slightly. "I'm here," I'd say, and then faintly, "I'm not." I found the trapdoor by accident, beneath the kitchen sink, behind a false panel. I was looking for something, anything, that could prove the apartment was still real. I never remembered seeing the panel before. It had no handle, no hinges, just a square of wood that pulsed ever so slightly, like it breathed. I touched it, and it opened inward, not down, like a mouth. What lay beyond wasn't stairs. It wasn't a basement, it was a corridor, identical to my hallway. Same carpet, same wallpaper, same 2 apartment doors, mine and 5D's, but darker, flickering, the walls breathing with the same hum that used to hide in the night. And this hallway had no end. I walked toward 5D, this version of it, and placed my hand on the knob. It was warm. I didn't try to open it. I turned back, only to find the corridor behind me had shifted. The trapdoor was gone, replaced by another version of my door, numbered 50C, like always. But there was no handle, just a slit in the wood, like a mail slot, but vertical. I stepped closer, squinted through it. I saw a version of my apartment. A version where the lights flickered, where the furniture was covered in white sheets as though long abandoned. In the center of it sat a figure, slumped, hands over ears, rocking. I knew that shape. I had seen it in mirrors, in dreams. It was me. But it wasn't moving like me. It was frozen mid-sob, mouth open wide but silent. I knocked. It didn't look up. I screamed. No response. Only then did I realize I wasn't outside looking in. I was watching myself from the other side. A side that hadn't moved in a long time. The figure inside blinked, just once, then smiled. I stumbled back, heart in my throat, and the corridor changed again. Walls shivering, carpet rippling. I ran, though I didn't know which way. Every turn led to the same 2 doors, FC5D, and eventually no numbers at all. Just blank doors in an endless stretch of hall. I ran until my legs gave out, collapsed beside a wall that pulsed like it had a heartbeat. The humming returned, closer this time, no longer through vents or walls. Now it was inside me, like it lived in my ribs, whispering lullabies in sync with my breath. "They're waiting for you," it said in a voice like mine. "They've been patient." I shut my eyes, told myself to wake up, to scream, to remember, but memory became a fog. I couldn't recall my mother's face. I couldn't remember the sound of my name. I couldn't remember if I had ever lived outside these walls. I only knew I was being watched, that this place, this maze of doors and reflections, fed on my forgetting. That the more I unraveled, the more space it made for something else, something to slip into me. I woke back in my bed. Same amber light, same humming fridge, the trapdoor gone, as though it never was. My body ached. My feet were scraped and raw. I checked the sink, no panel, but a message was written on the wall in condensation just above the counter. "You walked too far." It faded as I watched. I ran to the hallway. The real one, if it could still be called that. The door to 5D was there again. Intact, closed. I put my ear to it. Silence. But something was off. My door, 5C, was ajar. I hadn't left it that way. I stepped back inside, calling out softly. No response. Everything looked the same, except for the bedroom door. It was closed now. I never closed it. And from behind it came a low, wet sound. Breathing. Not mine. I backed away, but the door creaked open slowly on its own, darkness inside. And from within it, a voice. My voice. "Come back. I'm almost ready." I ran. Back into the hallway. Back to the stairs. I took them 2 at a time down to the lobby, but the lobby wasn't there. The stairs ended in a blank wall. No exit signs. No doors. Just a mirror. A full-length mirror I had never seen before. I turned around. The stairs were gone. I was in a room I didn't recognize. Just walls. And that mirror. I approached it slowly. I didn't want to, but I couldn't stop. My reflection looked tired. Older. And it was smiling. Not a grin. A soft, mournful smile. It raised its hand slowly. I didn't. And then it wrote something on the glass, fogging the surface with its breath. 4 words. "Let me be you." I screamed and shattered the glass with my fist. Blood spilled. The reflection cracked. But behind the broken shards wasn't wall. It was another version of my apartment. One with no lights, just a figure standing still in the center, head tilted, watching. I ran. I don't remember how, just remember falling, and then I was back, in bed, again. No cuts on my hand, no blood, just the smell of something metallic in the air. And a new note on my nightstand. This one handwritten in my own script. Don't trust the memories. They aren't yours anymore. I sat there for hours holding the note, waiting for something to change, but nothing did. Not right away. The change came gradually. My phone rang, for the first time in what felt like months. I answered. Static. Then a voice, one I didn't recognize. We've been watching, you're not the first. I whispered. Who are you? The voice laughed, then said, look behind you. I dropped the phone, turned. The mirror on the closet door, replaced. I hadn't put it there, and inside it, a version of me stood still, not smiling, just watching. I approached slowly, raised my hand, it raised its too, but half a second too late. A glitch, a fracture. Proof. And in that moment, I knew this was a test, a transition, a ritual. Apartment 5D didn't haunt. It harvested. It prepared. It waited for you to slip, just enough for the other version to take hold, to mimic, to push you aside, to exist in your place unnoticed, accepted. While you rotted behind glass and memory, I made a choice that day. I took the key, the original, the one from the nightstand. I stepped into 5D one final time. It was waiting. Lights dimmed. Air still. A mirror stood in the center. No walls. No furniture. Just the mirror and me. I faced it. My reflection grinned. I didn't. I said, I won't forget. The reflection stopped. Its smile faltered, and the mirror cracked. Just slightly. Enough. I stepped forward. Into it. And on the other side, 1,000 other versions of me turned in unison. Silent, some screaming, some laughing, and one stepped forward, the only one not looking at me, the only one looking back, at the world I left behind, at the door to 5D. And it whispered, it's open now. I don't know how long I stood there among them, all those versions of myself, frozen in the place between mirrors, between memory and mimicry, between identity and imitation. Some of them looked like me but aged strangely. Others had burns or fractured limbs or mouths soon shut with black thread. They all wore something I couldn't quite name, not fear, not pain, not madness. Something worse. Something like surrender, like they had finally given up trying to fight the thing that had taken their place. And yet they watched me. All of them. Some with eyes wide and desperate. Some smiling just enough to make me wonder if they were ever real at all. But one, the one who whispered, it's open now, was different. It stood slightly apart from the rest, as if not yet fully blended into the collective. It didn't move when I moved, didn't mirror me. It just stared at the portal behind me, the one that still shimmered faintly like rippling water in a cracked mirror frame. A way out, or a way deeper in? I asked, quietly, what are you? It didn't respond with words. Instead, it turned around slowly, revealing a mark on its back, a shape carved deeply into its skin, a door with no handle and a keyhole filled with dark wax. Around it, runes pulsed like veins, alive. I reached out instinctively, and when I touched its shoulder, every light in that space, the sick glow that came from nowhere, flared once then died. We were in darkness, a thick, breathing blackness. Not empty, but full of things waiting to be named. And in that dark, I felt them crawling, not on my skin, but in my thoughts, in my sense of self. Tiny fingers pressing at memories, turning joy into static, replacing my childhood with foreign flashes. A birthday party where the cake was made of ash. A mother who hummed lullabies through teeth made of mirrors. A father whose face was always turned away. I gasped, clutching my head, trying to anchor myself. My name is. I started, but I couldn't finish. I couldn't remember what came next. The darkness laughed, not with a voice, but with 1,000 sounds layered into one. Breaths, whispers, the sound of keys turning in locks that didn't exist. Then came the feeling, the pull, something grabbing me by the ribs, yanking. I was being pulled backward toward the mirror. I screamed, kicking at nothing, fighting the grip. But something inside me whispered, let go. And for a moment, I almost did. But then I saw something. A flicker in the corner of that black place. A candlelight. No, not light. Movement. A door. One that hadn't been there before. It stood ajar, flickering between shapes. Sometimes it was the door to my childhood home. Sometimes the entrance to my first apartment. Sometimes it was just black wood with no frame floating in the void. But it was real. And more importantly, it was untouched. I lunged for it, tearing myself free from whatever held me. The mirror screamed. Not shattered glass kind of scream. Human, femagree. The mimic. I now knew it was one. Chased after me, limbs stretching unnaturally, its face splitting into fragments of all the other selves it had consumed. I ran harder. The door loomed. Closer, closer. I reached for it, and just before I crossed the threshold, I turned. I looked at it. At her. The mimic who wore my face. Her eyes were leaking something black, like ink or oil. Her hands were covered in ash. And she whispered, if you go through, you'll forget again. I paused, then said, maybe. But at least I'll be me. And I stepped through. The world jolted, like a skip in a record, a glitch in a video. One moment, I was in that void. The next, I was sitting in the courtyard of my building. It was daylight, real daylight. The air was sharp and cold. Birds chirped. My hands were shaking. People walked by. Cars passed. I was back, I think. But something was off. Subtle things. The building was the same, but the paint was darker. The windows of 5D, visible from the courtyard, were now bricked up. My phone buzzed. I pulled it out. Notifications. Missed calls. Messages, but not from names I recognized. Contacts I didn't remember saving. Photos in my gallery of places I've never been. People I've never met. In one, I was standing on a beach with a woman I didn't know, holding hands. Smiling. But the smile didn't reach my eyes. I walked back upstairs, slowly, heart pounding. The door to 5C was there. Same number. Same dents. My key fit. It opened. Inside, it was my apartment. Mostly, but again, just slightly wrong. The layout was mirrored. The fridge on the left now. The bedroom on the right. Small things. Things that would seem normal to anyone else. But to me, they screamed. On the table lay a note in my handwriting. For now. I didn't know what to do. I stayed there. Tried to live. Tried to believe. But every night at 3:17 a.m. I woke up. No alarm. No reason. Just the sharp snap of consciousness, like something had grabbed me by the spine and yanked. And each night I heard faint humming from somewhere far away. Not loud. Not even clear. Just enough to let me know it was still watching. Still waiting. One day I gathered the courage to knock on 5D. There was no answer, just that familiar silence. But as I turned to go, I saw something in the peephole. Not a face, not a shadow. A note, taped to the inside of the door. 4 words. You're not done yet. I ran, left the building, booked a room across the city, slept with the lights on, mirrors covered. But the dreams followed, more vivid now. This time, I was the mimic. I watched myself from behind glass. I practiced my own laugh, my own gestures, perfecting them. And the worst part, it felt right, like I belonged there, like I was the one waiting to take over. And that's when I realized the truth. You don't escape 5D, you just move deeper into its layers. It doesn't want to kill you, it wants to hollow you out, make space, so it can wear you, be you. And the longer you stay in this world, the more it becomes like the one you left behind. So now I leave myself messages, notes under the bed, behind the fridge, scratched into furniture, reminders. You are real. Do or not er. Do not go back. But some mornings I wake and find those notes rewritten. You were real. You are her. You went back. And I don't remember writing them. I don't remember opening the door. But the key is always warm in my hand. I started filming myself while I slept. Just to know. Just to prove that I wasn't moving. That I wasn't the one opening doors, erasing notes, planting messages in my own handwriting with hands that didn't remember writing. I set up my phone across the room, angled just right to see the bed and the door and the sliver of hallway that the mirror on my closet still reflected, no matter how many times I tried to cover it. I recorded every night, every second. At first, the footage was still, motionless. I stayed in bed, tossing, turning, dreaming, but never rising. Then, on the 4th night, the footage glitched. Just once, a single frame. Blink and miss it. But I didn't miss it. One frame where my eyes were open, wide, unblinking, staring straight at the camera, and smiling. I showed it to no one. Who would I show? I had stopped talking to people, stopped trusting them. Faces blurred, voices warped. I'd see someone I knew on the street and their mouth would move out of sync, their pupils dilated too wide, their reflection not matching their gestures. I no longer believed in reality. I believed in what stayed still under scrutiny, and nothing did. I started hearing her voice in daylight. She didn't whisper anymore. She conversed, casually, like we were friends. Did you see the note? He's watching from inside the couch. That wasn't your memory. It was his. Always in my ear. Never when others were around. If others were even real. I questioned everything. Photos rearranged themselves. My handwriting started to shift, letters looping in unfamiliar ways. I began finding clothes I didn't remember buying. Books I'd never read. Pages dog-eared as if they'd been favorites. I found a coffee mug in my cabinet labeled 101 Dad. I've never had children, but the mug had a chip on the rim, one I somehow remembered cutting my lip on. That was the worst part. The remembering. The false memories creeping in like mold. I didn't know it was mine anymore. My dreams grew heavier. I'd wake up drenched in sweat, convinced I was being pulled from a deep well. A place with no walls. Just a ceiling, covered in mirrors angled downward, reflecting 1,000 versions of me screaming upward. I tried to destroy them, every mirror, every screen. I smashed my phone, unplugged the TV, painted over the windows, but they still found me. Reflections in puddles, in spoons, in the black of my eyes. I caught myself watching myself long past the moment any sane person would look away. Sometimes I moved first, other times I didn't move at all. But my reflection did. I went back to the building. I don't know why. I told myself I needed to confront it. End it. Burn it down maybe. The brick facade of apartment 5D was still sealed. But I brought the key anyway. The original one. It pulsed in my pocket warm like flesh. I walked the hallway, each step louder than I remembered. The light flickered above 5D, same as always. But now the brick wall had a seam, a thin, almost invisible line running through the mortar. I pressed the key into it. It melted, not the key, the wall. The bricks softened, folded, crumbled away like ash, revealing the door, the original fee, the real one, or the most real version I had access to. I opened it. Inside was not an apartment. It was a theater. A massive stage stretched before me, curtains drawn, spotlight centered. I stepped forward. The audience seats were filled, not with people, but with versions of me. Hundreds, each in different states of decay, of imitation, of mimicry. Some wore my clothes, others lab coats. One sat in a wedding dress, eyes hollow. All of them stared at me. Unblinking, I walked down the aisle toward the stage. Something compelled me forward, not fear this time, but necessity. A script was taped to the wooden floor beneath the spotlight. My name at the top, lines that I hadn't written, but knew by heart. I stepped into the circle of light and began. I remember being born, I said, but not the way most do. I was born inside someone else's skin. I learned to speak by listening through walls. I learned to smile by watching 1,000 faces contort into something called love. I learned that to become real, one must be believed. The audience nodded, in perfect, mechanical unison. I continued. I am not the first. I won't be the last. I am the rehearsal, the understudy of existence. And then, silence. The lights cut. A second spotlight blinked on. Across the stage, another me stepped into it, the real me, or one closer to it. He looked at me with pity, said nothing, just held out his hand. I didn't take it. I dropped the script. It burned before it hit the ground. Flames that hissed and whispered, too late, too late. The curtain rose behind me, and I turned. Behind the curtain was a mirror. A perfect one, towering, reflecting the audience, all of them now standing, all of them watching, and behind them, shadows. Tall, thin, with no eyes, only mouths, open wide in eternal screams. They weren't watching the show. They were feeding on the mimicry, on the belief. The more versions of me existed, the stronger they became. I ran, off the stage, through the seats, past my copies. One grabbed my ankle. I kicked. It whispered, a tag. You're it. I reached the door, slammed it behind me. The hallway was different now, shorter, walls closer, lights dimmer. The building was collapsing inward, a spiral, a drain, a trap. I pushed through it, climbing stairs that bent in impossible angles. Every floor had a new version of my apartment. I glimpsed through the doors, one where I had hung myself in the bathroom, one where I was eating glass, one where I rocked in a chair, staring at a static TV. All of them paused when I passed. All of them smiled. I screamed as I climbed, every step a crack in reality. I reached the roof. It was raining, but the rain fell upward. The sky was a dome. Mirrored, I saw the city upside down, and in the center, a hole, a black void. I threw the key into it, and the world paused. The rain stopped, the sky cracked, and a voice, hers, echoed through the clouds. You're making progress. Then everything turned white, not bright. A void, like being erased. I opened my eyes in a hospital room, machines beeping, nurses rushing, a man holding my hand. You're back, he said. I didn't recognize him. You've been in a coma 3 weeks. I blended, not looked out the window. The reflection in the glass was smiling. I wasn't, and I knew. The show wasn't over. It had just changed venues. I stayed quiet in the hospital, pretending to remember, pretending to recover. They called me brave. They called me lucky. They never asked where I'd gone, only when I'd be well enough to go home. I learned quickly what they expected of me. Nods, weak smiles, gentle thanks. I gave them all of it. But inside something trembled. Not with fear. Fear was a luxury I no longer possessed. It was something deeper, something older, like I had cracked a part of myself that could never be repaired. I looked for signs, anything to tell me I was truly back. But they were everywhere. Too perfect, too measured, too scripted. A nurse would hum that lullaby under her breath. A reflection in the metal IV pole would blink out of sync. My visitor, Colin, he said his name was, claimed to be my brother. I didn't remember him, but he brought pictures, letters, drawings we'd made as kids, all touched by time, all real, or at least well rehearsed. I told him I remembered. I didn't, but I remembered how to pretend. He smiled like someone relieved of guilt. That was his tell. Too quick, too easy. And when he left the room, I watched his reflection follow a half-second too late. At night, I dreamt in static. I'd wake tangled in wires and sweat, certain that someone had whispered in my ear just before I came to. Almost ready, they would say. Or sometimes, almost done. I checked the mirror in the hospital bathroom every night, stood in front of it, eyes locked on my own, daring the other me to move first. She never did. But her breath sometimes fogged the glass before mine. Discharge day arrived. I was given a bag of clothes I didn't remember owning. They fit perfectly. Too perfectly. I walked out into sunlight that felt artificial, like a simulation trying too hard. Every tree was the same height. Every car the same shade of dust. And my apartment building looked untouched, like time hadn't dared move without me. I stood in front of it for an hour, just watching. The bricks were clean. The windows unbroken. But I knew. I felt it. Like a mouth still hungry, waiting for me to return. I didn't. Not yet. Instead, I rented a flat across town, a high-rise with glass elevators and 24/7 security. Cameras at every door. I covered the mirrors, slept in bursts. I spoke to no one unless I had to, but they found me anyway. On the 6th day, I received a package. No return address. Inside it, a VHS tape. Labeled in sharp black letters, wait CH. I didn't have a VCR. Hadn't seen one in years. But when I looked on the shelf behind my couch, there it was. Wake like it had always been there. I put the tape in. The screen turned to static, then a stage appeared. That stage, the same one from 5D. A spotlight blinked on. And there I was, standing in the center. Smiling, speaking words I didn't remember saying. Ladies and gentlemen, thank you for believing. Because belief makes us real. And once we are real, we cannot be erased. An applause erupted from the shadows. Rouse of me, clapping in slow, mechanical rhythm. Then one stood and approached the stage. She looked like me, spoke like me, but her eyes had no end. Just tunnels. She whispered to the stage version of meh. It's your turn now. The tape ended. The screen went black, but I saw my reflection in it, and it smiled. I didn't. I tried running. Checked into a hotel under a fake name. Burned the tape. But the next morning it was on the bedside table again. Unmarked this time. They weren't threatening me, they were rehearsing me. Testing how well I could maintain the illusion, how far I'd go to keep pretending I hadn't already been replaced. I began to lose time. Hours vanished. I'd wake up fully dressed, hands dirty, shoes wet. Once, I found dirt under my fingernails and no memory of digging. Another time, a stranger on the street stopped me and said, "Hey, you moved back in 50D, right? I saw you through the window last night." Duh. I hadn't been there. But something had. I decided to end it, to return to the source, to burn it out of existence. I prepared for days, matches, fuel, a final message to myself scrawled on my arm in permanent ink. Ufafrg, duonottustur self. The night I went back, the city was too quiet, like the world had paused to watch. I climbed the stairs to the 5th floor. No lights flickered. No shadows moved. Door 5D stood plain and harmless. I knocked once, then twice. Then I used the key. It opened easily. The apartment inside was mine, a perfect replica. Music played softly in the background, some venal crackle of a forgotten tune. On the table was tea, still warm, and across from it her, me smiling. "I knew you'd come," she said. Her voice mine, but layered like it came from beneath water and glass. "I'm not you," I said. "No." She agreed. "But you will be." She gestured to the chair. "Sit. Let's talk." I didn't. I threw the gasoline instead, all of it. She didn't move, just watched, amused. "You can burn the room," she said. "But not the idea." I struck the match. She whispered, "You think fire can stop what's already inside you." I threw it anyway. Flames erupted. The room screamed. The mirror cracked. Her face melted, warping into dozens of others. All versions of me, all shrieking, all laughing. I ran. The hallway twisted. Time buckled. The stairwell folded into itself. Smoke poured from the walls, whispering my name in languages I never learned. I barely made it out before the windows blew. People screamed. Fire engines roared. The building burned. And with it, I thought so did she. But when I looked down at my arm, where the warning had been written, there was nothing. No ink. No scar. Only a new line I didn't write. "You did well. Next show starts soon." That was 2 weeks ago. Since then, I've seen her again. In shop windows. In crowds. On TV screens that flicker and freeze on my face. I speak to people and they tilt their heads like they've heard me before. Sometimes I'll say something and realize it's not me who chose the words. Last night, I found another script on my desk. Labeled simply, "Final Act." I haven't read it, but I already know how it ends. because when I look in the mirror now, she isn't smiling anymore. I am. Enjoyed the video? Give it a thumbs up, subscribe to the channel, and tap the bell so you never miss an update.